Everyone else heard nothing but dead air. But as Captain Alina Hale banked her A-10 over the frozen ridge, a faint pattern cut through the static. 3 taps, 1 drag. The unmistakable rhythm of someone still alive. And HQ had just told her it was over. If this story finds you, drop your location in the comments. Let's see how far these missions travel. The storm had moved in faster than any forecast predicted. Thick metallic snow falling in heavy sheets that swallowed sound and shredded visibility. Captain Alina Hale steadied her A-10, the engines humming with the deep, confident rumble she trusted more than most people. Beneath her stretched the Ridge Point Range, an endless maze of ice-cut valleys, jagged stone, and shadows that didn't behave the way shadows should. Somewhere under that frozen wasteland lay Forward Sight Kilo, the underground recon station that had gone dark 20 hours earlier. HQ had already delivered the verdict. Structural collapse, 0 thermal signatures, communication blackout, no survivors. The kind of report that was meant to close a file, not open a mission. But Hale had been flying long enough to know when something didn't add up. The structural pattern was too clean, the thermal silence too perfect, and the timing, exactly at the moment a recon team reported movement beneath the ice, made her gut twist. Recon teams didn't spook easily. When they saw something, they saw something. Yet HQ insisted. "It's over, Captain. Return to base." Hale didn't, not yet. Not while her A-10's analog receiver, patched together from spare parts and old frequencies nobody respected anymore, kept picking up irregular static bursts every time she passed over the valley mouth. Not digital noise, not environmental interference, a pattern, something deliberate hiding inside the storm's roar. She eased the Warthog lower. Ice fragments pinged against the fuselage, each one a cold reminder that if she pushed much further, turning back wouldn't be simple. The canyon ahead narrowed into a twisting throat of rock and ice, the kind of place only a pilot with her hours and her temperament would fly into on purpose. "Come on," she whispered, adjusting the gain on the old receiver. "If you're out there, give me something." For a moment, only silence. Then, barely there, a stuttering pulse cut through the static. 3 quick taps, 1 drag, a breath, an echo. Her heart slammed into her ribs. It wasn't a signal designed for equipment. It was human. A survival code almost no one used anymore, except the recon teams trained for deep isolation missions, the ones stationed at Forward Sight Kilo. "They're alive," Hale breathed. But that didn't make sense. The recon team had reported seeing something under the ice hours before everything went dark. If they were alive now, what else was alive down there with them? The A-10 lurched as a downdraft caught its wing, shaking snow loose from the airframe. HQ repeated the recall order, their tone sharpening, but Hale barely heard it. Her eyes narrowed on the canyon ahead, where the storm twisted in ways snowstorms shouldn't, like something beneath the surface was breathing. If the team was trapped, she needed to find the entrance they'd used, and the only clue she had was the echo threaded into the static. Faint, fading, but real. Hale pushed the throttle forward. The Warthog dipped into the canyon's shadow. And for the first time since the station went silent, someone, somewhere beneath the ice, sent another echo back. The canyon tightened into a twisting stone corridor as the storm funneled through it, the A-10 shaking under the force. Hale kept one hand on the throttle, the other on the analog receiver beside her knee. Every pilot she knew trusted digital systems. She trusted the stubborn old metal humming at her side. And that metal was picking up something no satellite could. Faint, uneven pulses hiding inside the static. A new echo broke through. 3 taps, 1 drag. closer, almost under her. Hale dropped altitude, letting the warthog skim the frozen basin ahead. The ice looked wrong, fractured in patterns too deliberate to be natural, as if something beneath it had been pushing upward for hours. Her HUD flickered in protest. Good. Digital systems hated this valley. That's why she was here and not a drone. Another pulse. Weak. Directly below. She circled tighter, watching how the engine wash disturbed the snow. Thin cracks appeared, spiderwebbing across a dip in the southern ridge. Not random. A collapsed pocket, exactly where a hidden access shaft would be. "There you are," Hale whispered. HQ chimed in immediately, their tone sharp. "Captain Hale, that zone is unstable. Return to base. That's an order." She muted them without hesitation. Hale dropped a flare to read the airflow. Heat rippled strangely over the ice, bending in a way that told her there was open space beneath, big enough for a recon team, small enough to avoid satellite mapping. Forward Sight Kilo hadn't been destroyed. It had been buried. A faint blue glow pulsed under the ice, mechanical and rhythmic. Someone down there was keeping emergency power alive just long enough to send those dying echoes upward. Then the receiver shrieked. No rhythm, only raw panic. A warning. The ice shifted violently. A deep tremor rolled across the basin, splitting plates like glass. Snow blasted upward in a geyser as something moved beneath the surface. Not collapse, not settling ice, movement. Hale yanked the A-10 upward just as a black fissure tore open below her, exposing the hollow underworld where the recon team had vanished. The static pulses from below staggered, like the sender was losing strength. They weren't just calling for help. They were telling her she was almost too late.
Hale banked high above the widening fissure, the storm whipping the A-10 sideways as if trying to shove her back toward safety. Below, the ice basin had transformed into a broken jaw of jagged plates and open voids, each gap revealing a glimpse of the cavernous world underneath. She steadied her breathing. Flying low here was no longer just dangerous, it was threading a needle above an awakening giant. Another pulse broke through the receiver. Short, weak, fading. "Hang on," she muttered, forcing the warthog into a tighter spiral. The black void beneath her wasn't empty. She could see structures through the swirling snow, angled beams, collapsed tunnels, a partially lit corridor stretching diagonally like a cracked vein across the ice cavern. Forward Sight Kilo hadn't simply fallen, it had been hit, and whatever it had done it was still shifting in the shadows below. Hale's eyes fixed on a flicker of motion. Not human, not mechanical. A ripple, like pressure moving through air, bending snowflakes around it. She adjusted gain on the receiver. A new signal bled through, different from before. A double-tap pattern, desperate and uneven. The recon team was trying to change tactics, trying to guide her. Hale watched how the echoes peaked when she passed a specific angle above the fissure. "They're marking the path," she realized. She dipped lower, engines thundering against the cavern ceiling. The A-10's landing lights cut through snow and revealed a narrow tunnel mouth, partially collapsed, but not sealed. Melted edges suggested heat, recent heat, too recent for the storm to cover. HQ pinged her again. "Captain Hale, this is your final warning. Withdraw. We detect unstable seismic activity." She killed the channel. The receiver hummed, then went still. No pulses, no pattern. Silence. Hale's stomach dropped. She topped the side of the console as if she could force a reply out of thin air. Nothing. If the signal had died because the sender had lost consciousness, or worse, she could lose the only guide she had. But then the ice groaned, a deep, rolling moan that vibrated through the airframe. Snow fell in sheets.
Somewhere inside the cavern, something massive shifted position, too coordinated to be natural, too slow to be human. Hale felt the A-10 tremble beneath her, not from turbulence, but from something below moving upward. "Okay, you're not staying underground, are you?" she whispered. She throttled up, gaining a narrow margin of altitude as the ice fissure widened again. The cavern beneath pulsed with dim blue emergency lights, casting long, unnatural shadows. And in those shadows, she finally saw it. An enormous silhouette sliding along the collapsed station wall, its movements disturbingly smooth. Not a creature, not mechanical. A drone platform. Military grade but modded, predatory, and not one of theirs. Something had hijacked the station's drone bay and turned it into a hunting ground, and it was heading toward the tunnel where the recon team had last signaled. Hale felt her pulse sharpen. If she didn't act now, the next echo she heard would be the last. She dropped the nose of the warthog. The canyon roared around her, and she aimed straight for the opening beneath the ice. Hale descended along the ragged edge of the fissure, the A-10's engines compressing the storm into a screaming vortex behind her. The tunnel mouth yawned below, angled, unstable, half collapsed, but still open enough for her to slip a visual down its throat. Blue emergency lights flickered somewhere deep inside, creating a strobe of shadows that stretched and bent in unnatural ways. Every instinct told her this place wasn't just dangerous, it was hostile. The receiver pulsed once, a single, broken pulse, barely a whisper, but alive. "Still with me?" Hale muttered, adjusting trim and holding the warthog steady against the gusts. "Keep talking." She eased lower, nearly scraping the landing gear against a slab of tilted ice. The drone platform she'd glimpsed before moved again in the darkness, its shape becoming clearer now that her light skimmed its surface. A massive chassis, reinforced with armor plates from the station's own storage, welded together with an improvisation almost intentional, as if someone or something had taken command and repurposed the drones for containment, not reconnaissance. A containment protocol that included eliminating witnesses. A burst of snow exploded upward as the platform shifted course, following the same tunnel that the recon team had used. Hale's jaw tightened. If it reached them first, she'd be rescuing bodies, not people. She banked left, hunting for an angle. But the canyon walls boxed her in. The A-10 wasn't built for subterranean flight. No aircraft was. She needed a weakness in the ceiling, a point where the ice was thin enough for a strike. She kicked out flares. Their glow washed over the basin, revealing stress lines radiating from a narrow ridge above the tunnel mouth, a natural choke point. If she hit it correctly, she could collapse the upper shelf and seal the drone's path long enough to find another entry. The receiver pulsed again, shorter, frantic. A warning. "I know. I'm moving," she whispered. She pulled hard on the stick, climbing just enough to give herself an arc to fire. The warthog shuddered under the strain. Engines roared. Ice rained off the canyon walls. She lined up her shot. The ridge glowed faintly in her targeting reticle. But the drone reached the tunnel's midpoint first. Its spotlight ignited, a harsh white beam cutting through the darkness. And in that beam, Hale saw them. Shadows of human figures huddled behind a collapsed support girder, one of them waving a weak beacon toward the fissure above. The recon team. Alive. Cornered. The drone pivoted toward them, weapon arm unfolding with mechanical precision. Hale didn't think. She acted. She fired a burst that ripped into the ridge above the tunnel, detonating a cascade of ice and rock. The entire shelf collapsed in a thunderous roar, sealing the drone inside the tunnel and blocking its line of fire. The cavern shook violently, sending a shockwave that rattled the warthog like a toy in a cyclone.
Snow flew. Ice cracked. The ridge groaned under its own weight. Then, silence. Hale steadied her breathing. Her hands trembled just enough to remind her she was still human. The recon team had seconds, maybe minutes, before oxygen, temperature, or that drone found another route. She dropped altitude again, scanning for a secondary entry. The receiver emitted a faint pulse. Rhythmic, deliberate, a pattern she understood instantly. They weren't just alive. They were guiding her in. Hale swung the A-10 toward the far side of the basin, where the ice dipped into a narrow crescent-shaped fault, exactly where the signal strength peaked. A new echo rose from the depths, stronger than before. The recon team had seen her strike. Now, they were telling her where to break through next. Hale angled the A-10 toward the crescent-shaped fault, the engines dragging the storm behind her in a spiraling wake. The ice here looked different, thinner, smoother, curved in a way nature didn't carve. Something beneath had pushed upward recently, reshaping the surface before freezing again. The receiver tapped twice. Pause. Once more. A directional code. "All right, I hear you," Hale whispered, dropping altitude until the warthog skimmed barely 15 feet above the ice. Her landing lights cut through the haze and revealed the buried station below. Collapsed corridors, flickering emergency beacons, twisted metal ribs clinging to life. They were right under her. She took a breath, leveled the aircraft, and fired one precise round. The GAU's blast cracked the basin like glass. A perfect ring of ice shattered inward, opening a jagged window into the depths below. A voice broke through the receiver, faint, weak, but human. "Hale, you opened light?" Static swallowed the rest. Her pulse spiked. They were alive and close. Then a low tremor rolled beneath her. The ice shivered like something enormous was shifting upward. Through the widening break, Hale saw motion. A massive drone platform, scorched from earlier damage, dragging itself up a collapsed corridor. Armor hacked together from stolen station plating, joints glowing with overworked heat. Not malfunctioning, hunting. And it was heading straight toward the recon team. "Not today," Hale muttered. She fired a short burst beside the breach, pinning part of the drone's frame under falling debris. Metal screamed as it tore itself free, crippled, but still moving. She didn't have long. Hale banked right, searching for any structural weakness that could become an extraction point. That's when she saw it, the emergency lift shaft, its ceiling already fractured, stress lines radiating outward like veins. If she hit it hard enough, she could punch open a vertical escape route. The receiver pulsed again, slower, deliberate, a signal she instantly recognized. Ready. The recon team understood what she was about to do. Hale climbed just enough to get a clean firing angle. Snow peeled off the wings. The storm roared past the canopy. The fractured ceiling of the lift shaft glowed faintly in her reticle. One chance. Stay with me. She squeezed the trigger.
The canyon erupted in white fire, and the ice above the lift shaft blew open in a roaring column of shattered light. The blast tore open the lift shaft in a single violent exhale, sending a pillar of ice, vapor, and shattered steel roaring into the storm. Hale pulled the A-10 up hard to avoid the debris, the warthog rattling like it was being shaken by an angry giant. Below her, the basin that had been silent for 20 hours now churned with movement, lights flickering, shadows shifting, alarms stuttering to life inside the buried station. The receiver crackled again, short, urgent, alive. She rolled back toward the breach. Through the swirling snow, she could finally see into the shaft, a straight, vertical tunnel of broken metal and blue emergency lights. And movement at the bottom. Figures, 6 of them. The recon team, bruised, frost-covered, but standing. One of them waved a beacon through the shattered opening. "We see you! We're here!" The voice broke through the static, hoarse, strained, unmistakably real. Hale exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. But relief lasted only a second. A metallic roar echoed from deep within the station. Then another. The drone platform, half destroyed but not defeated, was clawing its way toward the shaft, sparks spraying from its joints as it tore free from fallen debris. It had lost its spotlight, but its sensors burned through the dark like predatory eyes. And it was fast. "Move!" Hale shouted, though they couldn't hear her voice. The team was already climbing, hands digging into the broken ladder rungs. The drone slammed into the lower walls of the shaft, shaking the entire structure. A spray of metal fragments shot upward. The climb became desperate. Hale had seconds, maybe less. She swung the A-10 sideways, lining up a dangerously low angle. The Warthog wasn't designed for precision shots at this altitude, in this weather, with survivors directly above her target. Yet this was the only option. If she didn't stop the drone now, the team wouldn't make it 5 more feet. "Come on, come on," Hale whispered, adjusting pitch micromillimeters at a time. The drone lunged upward. She fired. The burst struck the wall beside the machine, collapsing the narrow ledge it clung to. The platform slipped, screeching as it fell through the shaft. But even falling, it kept climbing, stabbed metal limbs scraping against the walls, refusing to die. Hale snarled and fired again, this time into the exposed actuator crown on its back. A direct hit. The drone's core ignited in a violent flash, and the machine dropped away into darkness for good. The shaft fell still. Hale dipped the A-10 lower, keeping the engine steady against the rising wind. The recon team reached the top of the breach moments later, dragging each other through the mangled opening and onto the exposed ice shelf. Frost smoke curled around them as they staggered into the open and looked up at the aircraft that had refused to abandon them.
"Captain Hale," one of them said into the receiver, voice breaking. We thought it was over." She almost smiled. HQ told me the same thing. The storm raged, but something in it felt lighter now. She brought the A-10 around for extraction support, staying low, protective, steady, exactly what her aircraft was built to be. The last echo died out in the receiver, not because the signal failed, but because it was no longer needed. Captain Hale had heard them, and she had brought them home.